Yo, what's going on, everybody? So, One Piece chapter 842. I gotta keep it real with you, man. That ending. When it comes to the most Luffyest things ever. Yes, I said Luffyest. When it comes to the Luffyest things ever, this has to be like in the top 3. Let me get this straight. So, my man ate so much that he's at his limit. He can't eat another drop. He can't eat another drop. He's just swelled all the way up. And he ends the fight by basically going into gear 4. And he uses a cannonball attack to send Cracker flying. He says, I'm going to send you flying to the edge of New World. But he says, Nami, don't soften up those biscuits. And he proceeds to shoot Cracker through all of the biscuits. That is so awesome. That is so awesome, man. Like, when it comes to, like, my favorite Luffy moments, this has got to be up there. That is so awesome to see that, man. So, I got to say, on the real, though, at first I was like, what exactly is Luffy's strategy? I didn't think he really had anything. I thought he was really just reacting. I thought he was just eating the biscuits. And what you end up finding out is the fact that through the battle that took place off panel, basically, Luffy and Nami have figured out Cracker's weakness. So I'm like, oh, God, okay. So, Nami was actually the best person there because she can use that weather rod that she has in order to create rain that softens up the biscuits, makes it easier for Luffy to eat them, easier for them to digest. I was like, okay, I see what Oda did here. And I like how Nami's just flexing. She's taking control of some of Big Mom's soldiers because of the Vivre card that Lola gave her. And every time they start to say, what does she mean by my soldiers? What does she mean by my army? Nami just whips out that card and she has this evil look on her face. I love Nami for that, but let's be real for a second. That is totally gonna bite Nami in the ass at some point. I don't know when, but that's totally gonna bite her in the ass. Like, when Big Mom finds that out, Big Mom is gonna have a field day with Nami over this. Like, that's something where I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I can totally see that happening. Now, the other thing that I found interesting is the fact that when you get to the whole thing with Sanji and Reiju, this is probably something where I was like, okay, I've got to focus a bulk of the chapter on this because it just speaks levels to Sanji. Like, I'm so impressed by the fact that we're over 800 chapters into the One Piece story, and yet Sanji's character is getting yet another character arc. It's like, just when you feel like Oda has done everything he can possibly do with the character of Sanji, all of a sudden, Sanji's just taken up to a completely different level when it comes to character development. So what we actually end up finding out is why Sanji, first of all, doesn't like to hit women. If you go back to what happened in Water 7, when you had the fight with Khalifa, you know, that was one of the things that happened where Sanji didn't want to swap hands with her. I guess swap feet with her because Sanji doesn't use his hands unless it's cooking. But what I found so interesting about that is how Oda is just tying in what happened in that arc to right here. So you get this moment where in the flashback, Sanji has a moment with Zeff, and Zeff tells him, if you ever lay hands on a woman, I'll slit my own throat. I'm like, dude, that is so hardcore. Like, that is hardcore. Why would you say something like that? He has a line where he says that's just something that a parent would do. So what I like about this moment is how you're seeing a contrast in how Zeff became a father to Sanji and instilled his values into him, whereas you have somebody like Sanji's actual father who basically didn't do the same thing. So I like how you see the harder approach, the more Spartan approach when it comes to Sanji's father, and how Zeff completely flips everything on his head. So I thought that was really cool, and especially when you look at the cover page where you have Sanji and he's tying the catfish's whiskers and a mustache just because he wants to think about Zeff. It's just one of those things where every little thing is showing you how much of an impact that Zeff had on him and how much Sanji actually loves him. So I thought that was really cool. And what I find so fascinating is the fact that Zeff used to be a bad guy, used to be a pirate, and yet look at what he's done for Sanji. He's taught him ethical values. So I thought that was really cool, just seeing how Oda decided to take things in that fashion. And I like how Reiju tells him, she says, like, look, you know, don't get mad at me over you coming back. I told you there would be no second choice. You're the one who came back. And what she fails to realize is that Sanji's doing all this because he does have something precious. He does have a family that he wants to protect. He did find people who would love him unlike his actual family. And it's because of those bonds that Sanji can't forsake them, even if it means subject himself to something like this. Like when you have her saying, like, well, you know, if the Charlotte family takes a liking to you, you can actually live a decent life. But it's also one of those things where it's just like, that's a big if. That is a big if, especially given Luffy's personality. Essentially, Sanji could be in a position where even if he gets married to Pudding and Big Mom approves, because of how hard-headed Luffy is, Sanji's life is going to be a living hell. So it's almost like at this point, Sanji has to find a way to get those damn bracelets, those cuffs off of his hand to link back up with Luffy, because his life is going to be miserable either way. But let's be real for a second. I think that, you know, Pudding and Sanji would actually make for a really good couple. I would actually think that they could work. Again, I mean, we haven't seen a lot with Pudding, but the little bit that I've seen, I would think that she would be a good wife for Sanji. But, you know, what's also fascinating about this is how, you know, it's also showing that even though Sanji's in one of the darkest moments in his character at this point, Sanji is still, it feels like he's still thinking, he's still trying to resist a little bit, because you have that shot where you have Sanji, he's riding in that coach chair next to his brothers, and he has this faraway look on his face, and at the same time, you can tell he's never really given up. He has that stern expression. It's like you can see the wheels turning in his head. So I like seeing that aspect of Sanji's character once again showing. I think the best way to try and pull it back would be if you go back to the Foxy arc. So I think that's the Long Island adventure arc. When you go back to that arc, you have that moment where Zoro and Sanji, they're at each other's throats, but they agree to work with each other for, I believe, 5 to 10 seconds. I don't remember the exact number. I want to say it's 10 seconds, but they agree to work with each other for a whole 10 seconds. And you see what happens when those characters just set their mind to something and they can't be stopped. And so I feel like this is that moment where Sanji is entering into his 10 seconds. It's not going to be a literal 10 seconds. It might be 100 chapters given how Oda writes, but I feel like this is the moment where Sanji is plotting his comeback. So I like that you see this with the character Sanji. Now, the other thing that happens in this chapter that I found kind of funny was the fact that, you know, you have Chopper running with the mink that's from the... Now, the other thing I like is how you have Chopper and the mink that are running through all those different mirrors, and they basically get caught and they take off running. I thought that was pretty funny, just given the fact that Oda just drops that in there and say, hey, don't forget about Chopper. Chopper's still out there. So I mean, overall, I mean, this was a fun chapter. This was a fun chapter. The ending definitely fits in the whole thing. I like to say that Oda gives you the heavy hand and the soft hand. You know, the heavy hand being Sanji basically wrestling with his guilt in the flashback they had with Zeff, and then you have the soft hand where it's like Luffy provides the humorous moment when he actually gets the win. But I want to know from you guys, how do you personally rank the relationship with Sanji and Zeff? Like on a scale from 1 to 10, what do you give that relationship? And when it comes to ranking the relationship between two characters, where do you place them? Who has the strongest relationship out of any two characters in One Piece, and who has the weakest relationship out of any two characters in One Piece? They have to have interacted on screen for a significant amount of time, so you can't tell me like, oh, Usopp and Crocodile. They have to be interacting in a significant portion of time in the manga for this to count. And let me know where you guys will rank Sanji and Zeff. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.